and welcome to another Diary of a PT Student. I am totally glammed out in my Halloween stuff. I'm also wearing orange leggings. So just a little side note, if you didn't know, I'm obsessed with Halloween. It's also my birthday month, so I will be 27 on the 27th, and it's my golden birthday, so that's pretty exciting. But anyway, I wanted to make another one of these because now we have our practical this next week. So if you didn't see my most recent Diary of a PT Student, that's where I talked about the first exam of the neuro class that I'm retaking and my thoughts and feelings on that, and then how I did. Spoiler alert, if you didn't watch that video, I passed and ended up getting an A on the exam, which is super exciting. So now I wanted to make another one because I'm currently on campus. I'm about to practice with my buddy. So I just wanted to make another little thing for that. I'm not sure if she is comfortable with filming or anything, so I don't know if I'll do any filming of our actual skills practice, but I might do what I did with one of my other ones last year and just kind of talk about what we've done, because the same feelings that I had for the test I also have for the practical, where they don't always say everything that is going to be on it. As of right now, we don't have a written out rubric. She's supposed to be making one before the actual practical, which will be nice. So she just kind of said what we're supposed to do in class, but they tend to forget a lot of things. So I feel like not everything was stated. And so like I mentioned in the other video, this semester they've rearranged the curriculum from how they had it when I took it last year. So our first practical last year, we mostly were doing transitions of movement and doing different treatments, and then right before the practical, they tagged on sensory and motor exam. This semester, it's kind of flip-flopped. So we started with sensory motor exam, and then we just now, yesterday, finished up talking about dynamic reversals, combination of isotonics. I can never remember all these terms because they're super confusing, which is what happened in my other video too. And things like that. And so I have a horrible feeling that these second year students, because we just learned that and they don't have much grasp, because we literally just did it yesterday, that's gonna be the part on the practical that's gonna be the most difficult for them. So I feel like I have a pretty good understanding, I mean, besides what I'm trying to say it on a video apparently, but I understand dynamic reversal hold, combination of isotonics, I know how to do them. And then there's other ones that are on this paper that we got, contract, relax, and hold, relax, but we didn't ever practice those in lab. And so those were really confusing last year, and even reading them in the book, it was kind of confusing. And then I even tried to look up YouTube videos and stuff. And so when I was making my notes, I wrote down everything and I was like, okay, this is my understanding of what this means. I'm gonna try to practice those just in case, because I feel like they're could possibly be on there. She did say that we didn't have to do transitions, I guess, because last year we learned all the from side lying to side sitting, to sit to supine to prone on elbow, to tall kneeling and half kneeling. So I'm pretty sure she said we didn't have to know those because we haven't learned them yet. We did something in tall kneeling yesterday, and I was like, okay, so I know what all of them are, but if I have to get my patient into that position, I'm gonna be frustrated. If you tell me about position and they they can just go, that's fine. Because of the way that the practicals work is you have a partner, one of you is the PT and one of you is the patient. So you get a sheet that tells you what you have to do as a PT, and then there's a section about what you have to do as patient, because you basically have to pretend to be the patient. So you have to pretend that you have sensory loss, or you have to pretend that you're weak, or stuff like that, which was one of my questions, is if we're going to be graded on how we act as patient. And she said, yes, there are a few points towards being patient. I was like, okay. Because if you mess up as patient, you're going to mess up your partner as a PT. And, that's not good. The only thing that I'm worried about that is because last year we had an internal lab partner. So Karen was my ride or die. And so if she messed up, I messed up, but we only practiced with each other. Versus this year, I don't know who my partner is going to be for this practical. I have no idea who I am going to be with. They haven't set out a schedule yet. So I have no idea. And that's the one thing that I'm nervous about, is because if my patient doesn't know what they're supposed to be weak or deficit in, then that's gonna mess me up. And even I could know my stuff and I don't know, I feel like it's kind of hard to determine that. So anyway, I'm not as nervous for the practical as I was for the exam, because I do better hands-on. I have much better skills actually doing things than on the exam. So I definitely feel better that I did so well on the exam, so I feel pretty confident on the practical. But obviously I'm still gonna practice, because I'm not perfect. I'm not gonna be oh, I totally got it, I'm not gonna practice at all. No, I definitely want to practice, and especially practicing with my buddy who's a current second year student, seeing if I can teach her how to do these things. Then usually if you can teach somebody else, then that's more helpful for you to know if you really know it. So I'm gonna see how that goes. I mean, she's super smart. She does well on everything. She blows my mind. She's amazing. So we'll see if I even need to give her any knowledge. But I think that's pretty much it for now. I mean, I'm super early. I'm half an hour early to our little meetup, but I'm going to make a little list of everything that we've done so far in lab, because that's literally what they said. They were so everything we've done so far in lab is going to be on the practical. And we're what does that mean exactly? So I'm going to go through and make a little list. As far as I know right now, it's sensory and motor exam, cranial nerves, and the treatment stuff that we just barely learned, and positioning with pillows and whatnot. Yeah, so it's gonna be very interesting, because also while I'm here, we had a live patient last week, which we didn't get to do that last year because of COVID. And it was very interesting. So our patient had a stroke, and so he was left hemiplegic. And reading his eval, I was how is this dude walking? He had a 4 out of 56 Berg balance. And I was literally all he could do was transfer with one person, and then his sitting balance was fine, and everything else he got zeros on. So I was very confused about that. He came in on a little scooter, so a motorized wheelchair basically, So I was like, okay, that makes a lot more sense, because his eval said that he used a 4-wheeled walker. I was like, but he has like no standing balance. Like, how does he walk? But he was such a trooper. There was like 8 of us manhandling him in this practical, and obviously like we're still learning how to do stuff. Like, we had to do basically all the stuff we have to do for practical. We did it on a live patient. Like, we had to do cranial nerve exam. We had to test his sensation, his strength, range of motion. We had to test spasticity. That's another thing that could be on the practical. Yeah, and then we had to like, you know, do some kind of treatment. So I worked on bridging with him, which was interesting. So like when we tried to scoot, he just tried to go into sidelying. So I had to like prompt him, and we had to use like verbal cues and visual cues and all of that kind of stuff. So it was really cool to actually work with a live patient. And I think that definitely is going to help our skills for the practical, because we pretty much have to do all the same stuff. And so we'll see how that goes. I mean, obviously we don't have to do like everything, because you only have a certain amount of time. So like you'll only do like a couple cranial nerves. You won't do like the whole cranial nerve exam. And like they'll usually tell you like, oh, do, you know, sensation of the arm. Like, you won't have to do like the whole body. Anyway, it's going pretty good so far for the semester, and yeah, we'll keep you updated on how this practical goes. So I'm gonna go to campus and make my little list. So I might add a couple clips in here of that, and that's it for now. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so I just had my practical, and I have thoughts and words. And I am warning you right now that this is gonna be a freaking rant, because that practical was bullshit. Like, I'm just throwing that out there. I don't even care. I literally had to deep breathe walking to my car because I am so frustrated. So if I start like crying, it's out of anger, not sadness, because I'm low-key pissed, which I knew was gonna happen on these freaking practicals. Okay, so for this practical, we were given a cranial nerve, sensory testing, and then motor testing, and then we had to do a supine thorax and a positioning like at the end with like pillows and stuff. If you're not a PT student, you might not understand what any of these mean, so just forewarning on that. But anyway, so you get in there, you get a paper that tells you what you have to do as a PT, so what you're testing, and then you get a section as what you do as the patient. And this paper did not give enough information that was necessary for the practical. Okay, so I started out as PT, so let's start there. Okay, so I was given that I had to do extinction, which is where you test one side, the other side, and then you test both, like alternating. And if they can't sense the one side, then they have extinction. So that usually happens with stroke patients if they have neglect on one side. So I was like, okay, that's fine. I know how to do that. But in order to test extinction, you have to test light touch first. So I was like, you only have 15 minutes in this practical to do everything, which is not a lot of time. So I'm like, I am assuming that their intact side, so in this case, it was a left CDA, so they were right-sided hemiplegic, pretending. And so I assumed that their left side was intact. So I would just test left, right, both, and then see. And so I asked the proctor, And they're like, no, you need to test the left to see if it's intact. So I was like, okay. So I had to do whole light touch sensation on the left and the right, and then test extinction, which takes so long. So I was like, okay, so I did that. I know how to do it, so it's fine. And then I had to test lower extremity strength. And then it asked me to identify the Brunsum stage of recovery. And I was like, are you serious? Like, first of all, that was not in the instructions that we had to identify that. And to like really know, like I would need to test their spasticity. And so I was just testing their like motor. And that was another thing because we only have 15 minutes. So obviously in a normal exam, I'm gonna test their intact side and then I'm gonna test their impaired side. So, but I just tested their impaired side, and then she's like, well, aren't you gonna test the other side? And I was like, I mean, yeah, but like, I don't have time for that. So I tested the other side, but then like, it doesn't make sense to me why I'm going to apply resistance to somebody's manual muscle test if they can't get through full range of motion and they're moving in a synergistic pattern. I'm not gonna apply resistance to that. Like, they can't even move through their full range. I'm getting so frustrated. So anyway, I think that like I totally messed up on that whole thing according to like what their scale is or whatever. I don't even know. Okay, so then I had to test her cranial nerve, which is cranial nerve 8, which is like hearing. So I did the finger rub on both sides and she was able to hear both of those. So I was like, okay, so she was able to hear the finger rub, so I shouldn't have to move on to any of the other tests. And she's like, well, if it was impaired, then what would you do? And I'm like, okay, well, if it was impaired, then I would go on to Ryan's test. And I was like, do I need to demonstrate? And she's like, yeah. I was like, okay. So then I demonstrated what that was, where you put it on the mastoid and then you put it in front of the ear and you do that on both sides. And then if that was impaired, then you do the Weber's test, which is where you do the tuning fork on like the crown of the head, and they should hear evenly in both ears. So I did all of those. And then my next thing was supine therex. So this is another thing that I knew that I was going to be annoyed by because we haven't learned transitions of movement. So they haven't taught us how you're supposed to go from side lying, or from sitting on the edge of the bed to side lying, or from side lying to prone, or any of that stuff. So I literally look at Barb, who's my proctor, and I was like, do I have to get her into side lying? Like, we haven't learned those yet. Like, I know how to do them, give or take. It was last year, but I feel like I can do them. And she was like, yeah. So I was like, okay. So hopefully I wasn't fucking graded on that. So I had to get her, she's right hemiplegic. So I got her like onto her right elbow and then onto her side and then swiveled her legs over to get her like on supine, like on her back. And then, cause my thing was that my patient was having problems getting their leg on and off the bed. So I wanted her in supine, and then it was fine because we were on the right side so that I could have her right leg hanging off. So I started out with like heel slides and did that first, and did like tapping on the hamstrings to get those activated and verbal cues to like get her leg back, and then firm pressure on the quads when she straightened out, and did that a few times. And I was like, okay, once they were good at that, then we can progress. And I did the D1 lower extremity pattern, and I think she said that like that went fine, but like honestly, like it wasn't really that clear. Like it literally just said, do a supine therex to help your patient get like their legs off and on. And I was like, okay, well, like they're gonna need like hip extension, so that's why I was working on that. Honestly, I couldn't tell you. And then the last thing was I had to do tall kneeling
combination of isotonics, which I totally know how to do. I was like, yes, I got that one like perfectly. The problem is we haven't learned how to move the patient into tall kneeling from supine. So I look at Barb and I'm like, do I have to get her into tall kneeling, or can we just go into tall kneeling? And she's like, no, you should get her there. I'll help you. So I literally have to get this girl from supine to sideline to prone on elbow to quadruped to tall kneeling, which we haven't done this semester yet. Like, that should not have been part of our practical. Like, that takes up time of my 15 minutes. Once I got her there, it's totally fine. I know how to do combination of isotonics in tall kneeling. Like, you just put your hands on their ASIS, on their hips, and you have them concentrically go up to tall kneeling, hold isometrically, and then eccentrically lower back down into heel sit. So like, I know how to do that. It's totally fine. And then after that, my last thing was I had to place my patient in prone, which we learned that like prone is not a good position to put stroke patients in. But I was like, whatever, like I know how to do it. So then I had to get this poor girl back from tall kneeling, like back onto prone on her stomach, and then positioned all the pillows. I was like, what the heck was this? And then like, we were like running out of time. Like, we only had 1 minute to switch between us because like I took too long. But I was like, you made me do all kinds of stuff that I did not have to do. So I was really annoyed by that. And then me as patient, okay? So all of my instructions told me was that, so my graphesthesia, which is writing on the hand and you can identify it, that was absent. In stereognosia, which is where you can identify familiar objects, was absent. So I was like, those are super easy. Like, I just have to say that I can't feel it on the right side. That was easy. But then I had cranial nerve 9 and my uvula deviated to the left. How am I supposed to fake my uvula going to the left? The little thing in the back of your throat? I can't fake that. Like, my tongue, I can fake that, but I can't fake my uvula. So I literally was like, okay. And so then Barb had to tell her like, oh, so if it deviates, what side would it deviate to? And she was like, it would deviate to the side of the lesion, which in this instance would be the left side. She's like, good. So I was like, okay, because I literally can't fake that. And then it told me my left upper extremity manual muscle test was a 4-, which is like, I can do like slight resistance or something like that. But it only told me the left upper extremity, which is the intact side. It didn't say anything about the right extremity. So according to them, we had to test both sides. You're gonna test the intact side first. So I'm trying my hardest to like break from all of these. But the PT, the other student that was being the PT on me, was testing my lower extremity. And I was like, I don't have any information on my lower extremity. I have no idea what my strength is. So she's testing my whole lower extremity. I keep looking at my paper, and then like I keep looking at Barb, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. And then finally Barb's like, are you supposed to be doing upper extremity? And the girl's like, what? No, it says lower, I swear. So they messed up, and her paper did say lower extremity, but my paper said upper extremity. So then she had to switch, and Barb was like, oh, well, test the upper extremity. So then the poor girl got all like messed up, because then she like wasn't like, I mean, she did totally fine. Like, she did awesome. But, you know, when you're in the middle of a practical and all of a sudden they like, you have to do something different that you weren't prepared for, like that's kind of disorienting. So then she had to do upper extremity, and, you know, then she had like, you know, did most of them, but then Barb was like, well, don't you want to do the shoulder? And so then she had like, you know, did shoulder, but it like, I don't know, their whole thing is just really confusing. Like I feel like they haven't taught us very well how to actually do like a motor exam. So that might be something that I freaking asked them about, because I'm like, please explain to me, like this doesn't make any sense. Like you have manual muscle test, you have myotomes, you have like resisted isometric, and then you have functional activity. So like what do you want? Because like if we were just doing a screen, like it just made no sense as to like why they made us do all of that for the practical. So then on my patient thing, it told me what my like assist was. So I was like, standby assist for something, contact guard assist for rolling, and then min assist to roll to one side and mod assist to roll to the other side, something like that. But like the PT didn't get any of that information. Like when I was a PT, I didn't have information for what kind of assistance my patient needed. So like I feel like as the patient, I don't need to really know what my guard assist is. Like I don't know what that means. But for the PT, you need to know if they're standby assist, contact guard assist, min, mod, max, whatever. So that was kind of annoying. And then, yeah, so then she had to do same thing, like, so she had to get me from sitting on the edge of the bed to supine. Oh, she also did rhythmic stabilization, which was like totally perfect. But yeah, so she did the same thing that I did, where going onto the elbow and then like swinging the legs over, which I was like, good for you, like, because if I hadn't gone first and shown that, I don't know if she would have like known what to do. I mean, that's not the only way that you can do it. I just figured that was the easiest, but because otherwise they just like plop. I don't know, but yeah. And then when I was in supine, then she just did some like hip abduction, adduction, and then my issue, which it didn't tell me, it tells her, like, is that I had trouble crossing my legs. So she also kind of did a D1 pattern, but did it like crossing my leg over. So like we kind of did like similar things. And then she had to position me on my hemi side, so my right side with pillows and stuff. But yeah, so I'm really curious as to see what my grade is going to be on this. Honestly, thank goodness that I had Barb as my proctor, because if I had one of the other two, I probably would have lost my shit. Like, cause even with Barb, like she was trying to like tell me things and I was like, why am I doing that? This is a practical, like I only have so much time. Like I don't have time to do a full strength screen on both sides, like, and do passive. Like I don't have time for all of that. So that's gonna be my biggest complaint, is that like they need to be more specific on what to do, because that's not fair. Like I'm assuming that I only have to do what's on my paper, like for time purposes. Like I'm really annoyed. So luckily, practicals aren't worth as much grade-wise. Like, I think they're only worth, like, both of them. So we have a midterm and a final, and they're both worth 20%. So each is only worth 10%, which, like, obviously, like, you want to do well. Like, I don't think I failed. I think I probably at least got a B. Like, the only thing that I really messed up on, in my opinion, is the strength testing. Everything else I did, like, totally fine. So I don't think that I did, like, poorly. Like, I'm definitely, if I have to remediate, I will throw a hissy fit, because I don't think that I, like, did that bad. But yeah, like, I will obviously put in a, like, clip or something once I get my grade back and let you guys know. So yeah, I'm just really frustrated that I had to do things that they haven't learned. Like, we haven't learned transitions of movement. I should not have had to do that. Like, yeah. Anyway, okay, rant over, because the more I talk about it, the more frustrated I'm going to get. And, like, it's over. Like, whatever happened. Like, I'm really curious to see how the professors felt like the class did, because I feel like if I, like, messed up on those things, I feel like I'm curious as to how the second years did on stuff. So anyway, thanks for coming to my rant today. Sorry for being so salty, but honestly, really not sorry, because I knew that this was gonna happen. Like, I knew that they were gonna throw stuff that should not have been on there, and they don't give enough information. And yeah, so that's gonna be it, besides whatever I end up adding at the end here. So thanks for coming by and watching, and I hope this doesn't, you know, scare anybody away from physical therapy school, but it's not a good time most of the time. Like, practicals are really stressful. I couldn't even eat this morning before my practical. I literally had to wait till after, because I was so stressed. Like, I didn't feel stressed until this morning. So anyway, that's it. So catch you guys in the next diary of a PT student. Hopefully it's happier than this one. Here is the update about my practical. As you can see, I'm not in my car because my stupid car phone holder thing is just, I need to replace it. So I decided I was just gonna do it in here. So I had lab today, and during our break, they said that we could go up and, like, see our paper. So I asked Barb, I didn't actually look at my paper though, so she just kind of told me. So I got an A on my practical, so that's always good news. She said, like, my technique was really good and everything. The only thing that I got, like, marked points off was my manual muscle test, because she said, like, she had to, like, cue me a lot, and I just seemed, like, really disorganized. And so I told her, like, what I was kind of thinking as to, I was like, I thought that I didn't have to do, like, a whole screen because it's just practical. Like, you know, because we weren't given information on the other side of the body. At least for me, I was only given information on the left. I wasn't given information on the right. So I thought that I only had to test the right side. And she was like, well, with a real patient, you always test both sides. And I was like, absolutely, like, I totally understand that. Like, I always would test the, like, unaffected side and compare it to the affected side. Like, I would definitely do that if I was working on a real patient.
I just didn't do that because it was a practical and I didn't think that I had to. So that's why I was getting like really flustered. But overall, she said that I still did really great, and she did say that she thinks that I'm gonna be a great clinician, which made me really happy. So that was really nice. My lab partner from last year, Karen, she actually worked a little bit with Barb, who was my proctor at one of the hospitals, and so she was like, I was telling Karen that you're gonna be a really great PT. So that made me smile and that made me happy. So overall, I still did great on my practical. So sorry for losing my cool apparently earlier, but that is how it turned out. So in case anybody was wondering, I'm assuming that's why you'd be watching this video. But yeah, so overall, did really great, and so that makes me way happier and not so frustrated and annoyed. So I don't actually know what her notes were because I didn't actually read my paper, not like I could read their handwriting anyway, so I don't actually know. And then my grade is in Blackboard, but it didn't actually tell me my score, but she told me that I got an A, so that's all I know. So anyway, that's pretty much it for now. We do have a patient experience next week. We're going to a neurological clinic and actually helping patients there. We did that when I was in the second semester for neuro back in the spring, so it's a really great experience to actually work with these patients with neurological disorders and actually like know what things feel like, because it's hard when we're just practicing on our classmates who don't have those things, so it can be hard to like put it in like a patient perspective. So I think it's going to be really great experience for us next week. So we're just going right along PT school. I've only got 2 months left of the semester and I've been doing really great so far. We have our next exam in a few weeks. So I'm just gonna, start studying for that, and next thing you know, like clinicals are gonna be around the corner. So once I get more like updates and stuff like that, I will, maybe make another video and see how everything goes. And yeah, so thanks so much for watching this Diary of a PT Student, and I hope I will see you guys in the next one, or check out any of my other videos if you want as well. So like and subscribe to my channel because that always helps me out. So thanks, and I'll see you later.